Hey everyone, welcome to today's video. I'll be doing another flip through of one of my bullet journals. This will be the flip through of my 4th ever bullet journal from July through December of 2019. I'm sorry if you hear a lot of noise going on in the background. There is some construction going on and my husband is also home today, so he's just listening to a podcast in the background, so please don't mind that. But anyway, let's go ahead and just jump right in. For the 6 months spanning from July through December, then I was using an A5 sized Leuchtturm1917 dotted journal, just in the red shade. So let's go ahead and crack this thing open. So just to start the bullet journal off, I pasted in this nice quote from a scrapbook paper that I had. Just says, "Smile often, laugh loudly, and shine bright." So as you can see, I started setting up for the year 2020, which was incorrect. I went ahead and started setting up like this 2020 overview. And then I did this 2020 at a glance page, and as you can see, I started writing a few things in, and then I noticed that I hadn't even finished 2019 yet. So then I went ahead and just repeated the same stuff, but for 2019. So there's that. I just decided to leave that stuff in there just for a good laugh, good memories, basically. But yeah, here is the actual 2019 at a glance. This is just the first half of the year, which I flipped through in a previous video, so I will link that right here if you are curious. And then here is the second half of 2019. I kept the overall spread very simple. And then moving on, I just had a dedicated brain dump page here at the beginning of the year for like the yearly spreads. And then here I had kind of like an ideal schedule at the time. So I wanted to just lay out my day and dedicate specific time frames to do different things. Alright, so that's it for the yearly spreads, and moving right along into the monthly spreads. So for July, I did kind of this abstract galaxy theme. So I took just a piece of black construction paper and then I basically like dry brushed on different colors of acrylic paint just to create that abstract look. And then I took a white Posca paint pen to create this intricate design in the center, and then just wrote July in the middle. So here is the July monthly spread. Just included some monthly goals here on the side, as well as just a tiny little brain dump, just because I felt like at this point I wasn't needing an entire page for every month as a brain dump. I just wanted to include a little section of brain dump for each monthly spread. Here then I have my habit trackers on the left hand side, and then I started including kind of like a seasonal playlist at the time. So for July I have a summer playlist, and I just used my HP Sprocket Bluetooth printer to print out the album covers and just pasted them in. Here are my July doodles. So at this point then I have been doing daily doodles for a year now, which is just so much fun to look back on. Moving on to the first weekly spread, I kept this page relatively simple again. I just did another abstract piece similar to the cover painting and just pasted it in the center here, and then just used a purple Tombow to create the headings for the days of the week. Here I was just doing some lettering practice using my Pentel Fude Touch brush pen. And then moving on to just another weekly spread. For a while then I was creating kind of like these collage-y decorative spreads where I would print out images off of my Sprocket printer and then just paste them in along with some scrapbook paper and washi tape, and then I just filled in some empty spots with like lyrics or quotes. Just some more hand lettering practice. I believe I was using my Artline sticks or possibly my Tombow dual brush pens. Just another decorative page. Here's one of my favorite weekly spreads from this month. I really enjoy the ones where I can actually like doodle a lot or have like my own drawings in, so I didn't include like any extra scrapbook paper or any washi tape on this spread. It was just fine liner and watercolors. Alright, so we are reaching the end of July, so here then I have my July favorites on the left hand side. So I was really enjoying the Black Keys' new album, Let's Rock, and we had just finished watching Stranger Things Season 3, which I really enjoyed. My favorite memory at the time was taking our dog for walks, and then favorite restaurant was Barrio's. So just some very delicious tacos and Mexican food. And then on the right hand side here, then I just have my July recap. Moving on to August, then for my theme, I did more of a travel theme, and I wanted to include just some neutral rustic colors since it was the end of summer. So I really like how this monthly spread turned out. It's just very simple. I love the muted color palette of this monthly spread. I just added a couple of fun little doodles like a camera, a paper airplane, as well as like some mail, and then I just included some of my favorite washi tapes. Again, just including the monthly goals and a little brain dump. Here I included a habit tracker, and then I included a random expense tracker. I may have added this just because I wanted to start tracking my expenses again, but then I found that I didn't keep up with it throughout the month, so I didn't bother bringing it back for any of the remaining months. Here are my August doodles. So in case you are just looking right in the center of the page, you may be curious as to what this day was about, and I'll go ahead and just explain what in the world happened that day. So I was basically just on my way home from work, and I was on the highway. Unfortunately, I was in a construction zone, so the speed limit was reduced, but I was going the normal speed limit, and of course a state trooper was attempting to pull me over, which I complied, and after we were out of the work zone, since it didn't have a shoulder, then I waited until after the work zone so that there was a shoulder to safely pull over to. So when I did that, I noticed that there was a sewer and the sewer cover wasn't completely on, and I have dash cam footage of this and everything, so this is important later, but the sewer cover wasn't completely on, and I noticed that it was just kind of sitting on top of the road and not over the sewer. So I noticed it and I quickly swerved out of the way, and the state trooper was driving either way too close behind me or wasn't paying attention at all, and he drove right over it. And this was the exact image that I saw when I looked in my rear view mirror. He literally was like 90 degrees to the ground. He was perpendicular. It was horrifying, honestly. Like, I was terrified. My heart was just beating like crazy. I felt like I was really worried for the guy. The reason why I added this description, however, was because after what felt like a very long time after we had stopped, I was just sitting in my car waiting for him to get out, and he took a very long time, probably because his car ended up getting totaled. So he was in his car for a very long time, probably making calls and stuff, and then what felt to be maybe like an hour later, he finally came out and basically just accused me of doing this to his car, which, how in the world was that my fault? I mean, it's funny thinking back to it now and actually like saying the story out loud again, but it just blew my mind. And so it ended up being like a very long, drawn out thing where he ended up giving me the ticket, which I completely am at fault for. I understand that I was speeding, but it turned into a whole nother thing because he tried accusing me of swerving out of the way and messing up the sewer cover purposely so that it would total his car, which I have no idea how in the world anyone would be able to do that. So anyway, I had to wait there for a very long time for another police officer to arrive to the scene, and they had to take down my statement, and they were both basically just accusing me of purposely doing this so that it would total his car. But because I had the dash cam footage and I was more than willing to go to court and prove that I was innocent, I even sent the footage to them just to prove that it was already uncovered, then it just was a really crummy night, basically. So I ended up getting home like hours later, and I did send over the footage to them, and thankfully nothing ever came of that. They never followed up with it, just because it was very obvious that the dude wasn't paying attention. And I basically just had to follow up on the speeding ticket, which I completely am at fault for. So anyway, just a little random story in case you were curious about the 21st of August of 2019 and how my day went. Anyway, moving on. Here is a weekly spread. I thought that this one turned out pretty cute. I like including these little scrapbook cards in here. They just have kind of like a vintage filter on it, so I really like the look of them. Again, just some more random lettering practice. I felt like at this point I was just wanting to practice my brush strokes again, just to make sure that they were still in tune. This is one of my absolute favorite decorative spreads that I've ever made. I think just everything put together, like the neutral tones, the images that I printed off of my sprocket, and then just a couple of scrapbook elements along with the quotes and washi tape. I think it all just comes together so nicely, along with like the craft paper. I really love that. So this is kind of the aesthetic that I'm always really drawn to. I really like how this weekly spread turned out as well. I basically just cut out a large image from a magazine and then just cut that in half, and then just put one half on this side and then the other on this side. And I think it just adds like a very interesting look to the weekly spread, something that you just can't achieve with drawing. And I think it's just really nice using like the magazine, just because it's like very thin, shiny paper compared to like scrapbook paper, where it's typically thicker and has more of like the matte finish to it. Here then I just did a journal entry. There was a lot of stuff going on in my mind at the time. I was very unhappy with the place that I was working at. Unfortunately, my workplace was just turning out to be a place that I didn't want to work at anymore, which was very unfortunate because I actually really loved the job itself, but I think it was just the management and the people that I had to be around that made it extremely difficult to go to work every day. So just another weekly spread here. I printed out a few more images off of my sprocket, and I really love the colors and just the warm, cozy aesthetic of it, along with some random washi tape and some little doodles. For the next few pages, then I did more of the scrapbook creative journaling spreads. So I printed off some images from the weekend, pasted them in, and added a little journal entry to go along with it. For Monday, August 5th, we went to go see John Mayer in concert, which at this point I believe was the third time that I had seen him. So that was such a great experience, and I went ahead and just included the set list of the songs that he played. Unfortunately, this was the last concert that I went to before COVID happened, which just made it even more special in my opinion. Here then I just continued on with the scrapbooking and journaling elements. Just for the following weekend, we spent some time with some friends and family, and then the following day we went to a Twins game, which was a lot of fun. And then the following day then we spent some time with my family. Here then I finished a book called A Perfect Union of Contrary Things by Sarah Jensen and Maynard James Keenan. I thought that it was such a great book, and it was very interesting to learn more about his life. If you're unfamiliar with him, then he's the lead singer of the band Tool and A Perfect Circle, as well as Pussifer, and I have a lot of admiration for him. So I thought that his book was very intriguing, and it's honestly been quite a while, so I feel like I should probably pick that book up again. And then on this side, I just did some self-reflecting and included another journal entry. And on the left-hand side here, I wrote down everything that happened that day with the police officer, just so that I could have it down somewhere and reference if I ever needed to again. So I'm very glad that I did that, just because it was obviously a lot more fresh in my memory at the time than if I were to try and recall it now. So there's that. Here then I have my August favorites. Favorite music discovery. I was very excited that Tool was now available on streaming services. So up until then, I basically just had to listen to them through CDs, which feels very archaic nowadays. Favorite memory was seeing John Mayer live. Favorite video, I filmed this hilarious and ridiculous video of my husband. And then my favorite book was the Maynard James Keenan one. And here on the left hand side then I just have my August recap. So a lot of exciting and fun things happened that month despite the unfortunate traffic stop. Alright, so moving right along into September. I was going through kind of a rough patch, and so I wasn't feeling as inspired to create, unfortunately, just due to the job situation that I was experiencing. I can just tell looking back on this cover painting that I was definitely not in the best headspace, unfortunately, but I decided to do just kind of like a floral theme using a color palette of blues and beiges. Here is the September monthly spread, just a pretty minimal one, not too many colors included, very muted. Here I have my habit trackers and then just a decorative lyric page here on the right hand side. I have my September doodles on this spread. Here is my first weekly spread of September. Again, I just went ahead and printed out a couple of images off of my Sprocket printer just to paste into some of my weekly spreads. Here then I added another couple of spreads that are that scrapbooky creative journaling type. We went back to visit my husband's family, and then here I just wrote down my wonderful sister-in-law's delicious jambalaya recipe that she made for us while we were back home visiting. This is one of my favorite weekly spreads that I've made to date. Like I said in the beginning of September, then I was feeling a little bit uninspired, but I feel like at this point then I was just really motivated to create something and dive into a piece that just allowed me to get my mind off of everything else that was going on in my life. So I basically just drew out this little portrait based off of a picture that I took of myself a while back. And then I just filled in the rest of the page with some foliage and floral decorations, which I really enjoyed. Here is just another journaling spread. One thing that I really like about this bullet journal, flipping back through it, is that I included a lot of images from the time, and I also journaled a lot about specific events that were going on at the time. So for this specific journal entry, then I was just journaling about the time that we went to go see Joe Rogan live at the XL Center, and he was doing some stand-up comedy. And I believe this was my first time ever going to a stand-up comedy show, so that was a lot of fun. Here's another one of my favorite weekly spreads. I just really love the combination of navy blues and beiges, kind of like that neutral, muted color palette. Here's kind of a fun spread that I did where I basically just wanted to draw myself, but in the style of different anime and different cartoons. So the first one, then I stylized myself in The Simpsons, and then I did Dragon Ball Z, one for the Powerpuff Girls, a random SpongeBob one, South Park, Pokemon, and Family Guy. So this was a lot of fun to create, and I could probably do like an updated one at some point. Here's another decorative spread that I centered around a Tool song, just because I was so into them at that time. And here is the last September weekly spread. I was experimenting a lot with like gold leaf, so I would use my adhesive glue pen to write something out, and then I would place the gold foil on top of it for a few seconds, and then I would brush away the excess, but I wasn't really good at it. I feel like it kind of turned out a little messy, and so that's why it has kind of like that distressed look to it, if you will. And then here are my September favorites. My favorite album was Fear Inoculum by Tool. This was their most recent album that came out the previous month of August. My favorite lip product was the Laneige Lip Glowy Balm in Pear, and this was the month that I started reading the Harry Potter books for the very first time. So up until this point, I had never read or watched the movies aside from watching the very first one here and there. I never watched it in its entirety. So this was when I decided to finally dive into the world of Harry Potter. My favorite comedy specials were the Dave Chappelle one and the Bill Burr specials that came out that month. Favorite memory was going to see Joe Rogan live. And my favorite face product was the Mamond Peach Sake Serum, which unfortunately I think this brand no longer exists. But here is my September recap on the right hand side. Just a lot of good memories and fun pictures from the month. And then just to close out September, I just have a couple pieces of scrapbook paper as well as a little journal blurb here on this page. And then we'll move right along into October. Again, just looking back on this piece, I can just remember that I was not very inspired. I was kind of having like a theme cover page artist block at this point, so I was kind of running out of theme ideas, and so I went with this black and red tree theme, which was very strange to me. I still honestly don't really like looking back at this time, unfortunately. I think the red and black are just a little bit too harsh for my liking now, so I'm just not a huge fan of it, unfortunately. But here I have my habits, and then I also included a fall playlist. So again, I just printed out some pictures of the album covers, pasted them in, and just made it look as if you're listening to it on like Apple Music or something, which is what I listen to my music on. Here then I have my October doodles, just some watercolors scattered throughout, and then a strip of this beautiful kimono style washi tape on the top. Here's the first October weekly spread. Again, I wanted to recreate one of the July weekly spreads just with like the black construction paper along with like an abstract painting in the center, along with the daily spreads scattered on the outside. But personally, I'm just not that big of a fan of how this one turned out as opposed to the July one. Here's another decorative journal spread. I just pasted out a couple of pictures of the time where we spent a night with his family, and then the following day where I went to the winery with the women of the family, which was a lot of fun. Here then I wanted to try and do something a little bit different for this weekly spread, where I pasted in some black construction paper. I went in with a couple of different red watercolor paints along with like a metallic one, and just used my white gel pen to write everything else, which I thought was a very nice change, and I kind of needed that at this point. Here's another lyric page where I just wrote out the lyrics to a Tool song that I was really into at the time. I thought that the lyrics were very interesting, so I really wanted to just go ahead and write them out for myself. Just more lettering practice. And then here is a smaller weekly spread where I just confined it to one page, and then for the left hand side then I just kind of did like this tree view as if you're like looking up towards the top of the trees, and then just included a couple of pictures of my husband or my boyfriend at the time, just a picture of us from each year that we've been together. So at that point then we were celebrating our 3-year anniversary. Another journal entry recalling just a couple of events that happened that month. We went to go see Tom Segura live. He was doing a stand-up comedy show. My husband and I celebrated the 3-year anniversary of us dating. And then I also went to go observe surgery at my workplace. So I thought that that was very interesting. And I would love for the opportunity to do that again someday. And then just some more journaling about the following days. We went to go see Bumping Mics with Jeff Ross and Dave Attell, which was a lot of fun. And then we spent the weekend with his brother and sister-in-law, and then we just jammed out on some instruments. Here's another blackout weekly spread. Again, just pasting in the black construction paper using different red gel pens and markers to write on top along with the white gel pens. I painted this scene on some watercolor paper and then just pasted it in, but I really like how this turned out. I think it just looks so fluffy and very cozy, so I like how this turned out a lot. And then here I just have another lyric page. Again, I just printed out some images from the sprocket just to go along with the red and black theme. Here is the last weekly spread of October. Very simple. With the exception of this corner down here, I do really like how this bottom part looks, just with like the different trees, some in the background, the foreground, and whatnot. So I really like how that ended up looking. And then here I basically just dedicated a page to that job that I was really struggling with, and unfortunately I did have to leave, but I wrote a journal entry just reflecting on that position, and on this side then I wrote basically just some highlights from working there. So I do think that it is really important that when we are experiencing something very troubling and difficult during our life, that we always just try and look to the good and just try and find something positive that'll come out of it, just to allow us that peace of mind. Here then I also have another decorative page that I wrote out another set of lyrics from a song to. And then here we are coming towards the end of October for my October favorites. My favorite face product was the Acure Brightening Facial Scrub, which to this day I still use and love. My favorite lip product was the Maybelline Color Sensational The Buffs Lip Color in Maple Kiss. Unfortunately, this has since been discontinued, but this was one of my absolute favorite lip colors. I just really loved it so much. My favorite memories were going to see Tom Segura, Jeff Ross, and Dave Attell live. My favorite book was Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban. My favorite album was 10,000 Days by Tool. And then my favorite memories were our 3-year anniversary and also leaving my previous workplace. And then here we have my October recap. So just focusing on the good things that happened that month for sure. So basically for November, I wanted to just go ahead and dive into like the whole wizarding magic theme that is Harry Potter. So I went ahead and included like a wizard's hat and then like a wand, some potions, and then just an interesting moon with some stars and sparkles, of course. Here is my habit tracker, and then I forgot what it was called, but there is this sorting quiz that you can take online, and so I ended up being sorted into Gryffindor. My wand is an acacia wood with a phoenix feather core, 12 3/4 inches, and brittle flexibility. And then my Patronus is a Manx cat, which is very fitting. I don't know if you can tell just with like all of the metallic watercolors, but I drew my little Patronus right here, which is so cute. And then I basically just drew like a Harry Potter version of me. Here are my November doodles, and then again with the magic wizardry aesthetic of a cauldron, footprints that you would see on a Marauder's map, a wand, a feathered quill, and some more potions. Moving on to the first November weekly spread. Here then I included some lyrics as well as some quotes from Harry Potter. And then another weekly spread, I included a broom. And I finally got around to doing a 3-year anniversary spread for my husband and I, similar to the one that I did for like our 1.5 years. I also did something like this. Here is another weekly spread. Here I just wanted to draw another wizard with her pet owl, and then I included some spells. I think at the time I was also playing like this mobile Harry Potter game that would have you learn like spells, and so I think I just copied these down from that game. I always really enjoyed how this weekly spread turned out. It's very unconventional and very interesting, but it's basically supposed to be like somewhat of a bridge or gate. Like these are supposed to be like the stones of the bridge, and then Hagrid along with like the first years, then they would come on that giant boat like through the bridge and towards Hogwarts. So that was kind of the idea behind this weekly spread basically. But yeah, I always just really loved how it turned out. I thought it was so much fun. Here is my Thanksgiving 2019 spread. So just recapping some details from the Thanksgiving get-together that we had with my husband's family and then from my family. My sister-in-law just got her new puppy, Lucy, so she was just a little baby at the time, which She was just so cute. Alright, so here we are reaching the end of November. I painted this little galaxy scene and went over it with my white Uniposca paint pen and just drew in some crystals. So my favorite albums were Beyond and Abyss by Talisk. My favorite TV show at the time was Black Mirror. My favorite game was The Sims 4. Favorite memory was Thanksgiving with my family and my husband's family. And favorite makeup combo was the Becca Shimmering Skin Perfector in Pearl along with the ColourPop Super Shock highlighter in Flexitarian. So I was really into highlighters that month, I suppose. But yeah, here is my November recap. And here we are at the final month of December. Inspired by Jenny Journals, I painted this very mythical looking crystal ball. I really love how this turned out just with the very blurred blends of the watercolors. So I suppose for December I ended up doing crystals. Here then I have my habit trackers, and then I included a brain dump for December alone just because for the holidays I wanted to keep track of all of the gift ideas. Here are my December doodles. Some of these spreads were inspired by, I believe her name is Lola Starry Art on Instagram. She just had a very beautiful way of decorating her weekly spreads, which I really loved. So I wanted to just emulate that in some of my weekly spreads. Here is a random decorative lyric page once again. And then a weekly spread. I wanted to include these strips of scrapbook paper just because I thought it was very beautiful and I love like the holographic foil that's included in it. Just another journal entry. I was still trying to make sense of stuff that was going on in my head. For this weekly spread then I kept the crystals very simple. I just did the watercolors and then I didn't bother going in to outline them, which I think added a very nice delicate touch to them. Here then I wanted to include kind of like an overall 2019 themes. So I just painted a little icon that represented what the theme was for that month. Here is another weekly spread. And then since it was getting towards the end of the year, I wanted to include a spread of my top 10 favorites of the year. So number 10 was the restaurant Nico's, which had some very delicious Mexican food and some of my favorite tacos. Number 9, my favorite lip product was the Maybelline's Color Sensational Lipstick in Maple Kiss, the one that has unfortunately been discontinued. Number 8 was my favorite face product, which is the Acure Brightening Facial Scrub. My favorite TV show for number 7 was Black Mirror. Number 6, my favorite live event was Tom Segura. Number 5, my favorite book series was Harry Potter. My fourth favorite was an album, which was Fear Inoculum by Tool. Favorite music artist was Tool for number 3. And then my second favorite of the year were the vacations that we took earlier in the year. And then my number 1 favorite item of the year was my bullet journal. And here are my December favorites. So my favorite movie was Dinner for Schmucks. Favorite album was the Best of Dr. Hook. My favorite face product was the Smashbox Studio Skin Flawless 24-Hour Concealer in Light Warm. Favorite palette was the Kathleen Lights and ColourPop So Jaded Eye Palette, which is still one of my favorites. And then favorite lip product was the ColourPop Ultra Blotted Lip Color in Cypress Chill. And then here I just have my December recap. A lot of good memories from this month due to the holidays. And here I have my year in review. So I just journaled about different events from the year, such as moving to our new house, vacationing in Florida, vacationing in California, going to Minnehaha Creek with my boyfriend and our dog, just taking him out on walks, going to comedy shows for the first time, 3-year anniversary with my husband and leaving that workplace, my husband getting a new car, and then me getting a new phone, and then also wanting to create a YouTube channel at the time revolving around bullet journals, but I ended up not going through with it, unfortunately. Here then I just have another what to migrate page on things that I want to continue including in future bullet journals. And this is just kind of like a sneak peek of my 2020 themes ideas. And basically for the rest of the bullet journal, then as per usual, they just have pen swatches. So I usually like to start off with my Tombos. And then here I have my Crayola Super Tips. Some random ones like the Pentel Fude Touch, Tombow Fudenosuke's, and Kuretake Zig Fude Bioris. Right Dudes Gel Pens, Zebra Mild Liners. Some random fine liners and paint pens. More paint pens. Tombow Twin Tone Pilot Juice Gel Pens, Sakura Souffle Gel Pens. Artline sticks, some miscellaneous fine liners, just some more fine liners, some fountain pens, and then I also included some washi tape swatches at the back as well. And then lastly, I just have a page of my Friction Ball Slim erasable gel pens, which I don't believe I have anymore. But yeah, that is it for bullet journal number 4, spanning the time of July through December of 2019. So yeah, thank you so much for watching. I really hope that you enjoyed it. Let me know which theme was your favorite, and if you have any future video suggestions, I would love to hear from you guys. So thank you again so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.